Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Molly Magnuson, and I work with Intellisense. We are the financial consultant and investment advisor for the Fairwave 401k plan. So my goal today is just to explain how the 401k plan works in a nutshell, give you our contact information and answer any questions that you may have. So I will go ahead jump into my presentation. Okay. So a little bit about Intellisense. We are a fiduciary, so we get asked that from time to time. A fiduciary, simply, that means that we act in your best interest. We work with both you as an employee at Fairwave, and we work with your employer behind the scenes on helping them run the plan from an administrative standpoint. So we're helping select, or we're actually the ones that are responsible for selecting the funds that are available within the plan. We help your employer navigate the various legislative changes that happen within the retirement plan landscape. We do things like this, employee education, where we provide education to participants, and then we do one-on-ones as well. So if you ever want to meet with us virtually or in person, if you're local to the Kansas City area, we're available to do one-on-ones and help you with your individual situation. You also have One America, who is what we call your record keeper. So they are where you will log on to your 401k website to access your account and access your account statements, make contribution changes, beneficiary changes, investment changes. So basically how you manage your account. So I imagine that a number of you have logged onto the website before. I know that many of you have. This is how you access your account. So that's what we call a record keeper. If you do ever want to reach out to Brandon or I, you're welcome to. We're in Overland Park, Kansas, so we are pretty local to many of you. I know that not everyone here is from the Kansas City area, but you're welcome to reach out to us via email, give us a phone call. Either of us are available to help you all out with your 401k questions. So this is how you access your account. And I just added this plan number at the last second because I logged onto the website to see if they still need it, and they do. So if you ever, or if you have never accessed your 401k account, this is how you do that. You go to oneamerica.com and you can just do /enrollment. That'll kind of get you there a little bit quicker. But if you've never logged on before, you're going to select that you're an individual with a retirement plan. Sometimes it has you click on a couple of extra steps, but I believe that the extra step is just saying I'm an individual with a retirement plan. And then it will ask you to kind of self-authenticate. So with your social security number, your first name, your last name, maybe your zip code. But it will ask you for the plan number, which I've listed here on the screen. It's G50550. So that's how you access your account online. So if you're currently contributing and you've never logged on, this is where you would go to do that. If you do have any issues, like maybe you lock yourself out of your account or you're just having some other sort of technology issue, I do have the 1-800 number for One America up here on the screen. So you're always welcome to call them as well. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about 401k 101. A 401k plan provides a lot of additional features when it comes to saving for retirement that you can't get within like an individual retirement plan. So that would be an IRA or like a Roth IRA. A 401k plan, the biggest advantage to using one is that you have access to investments that you don't have access to within an IRA, and you're able to contribute much more. So you can well, it's a lot more actually. So that's kind of the biggest bonus. Another bonus is that it comes directly out of your payroll, your paycheck. So your money goes straight into your 401k before you even see it on your paycheck. Of course, you've got an employer contribution I want you all to take advantage of. And then you've got access to Intellisense investment advisors and so forth. So a little bit about the plan highlights. This is kind of the nuts and bolts for how the plan works, which there's much more that goes into how the plan works, but these are kind of the things that you need to know as a participant. So you've got to be 21 years old to be eligible and work at the company for 2 months. So age 21 and 2 months of service. That's for contributing both your own money and receiving the employer match. Part-time employees, so that's defined as anyone that works less than 1,000 hours in one plan year. Part-time employees, seasonal, and temporary employees are excluded from the plan. But if you're somebody that's part-time and you go over 1,000 hours, you do become eligible. So please pay attention to that. If there are people at your company that fall into that category quite often. That could be applicable to many of you. The entry date after you meet the eligibility criteria is the 1st of the month. And then best part of the plan is your employer match. So let me explain how this works, because I know it's worded a little bit funny. The formula is 100% of the first 1% you contribute. So if you put in 1, the company puts in 1, and then it's 50% of the next 5% you contribute. So the easiest way to explain that, and I have another slide that kind of breaks it down, is that as long as you are putting in 6% of pay, Fairwave is putting in an additional 3.5% of pay. Okay, so as long as you save 6%, your employer puts in 3.5%. That's the match. You have to contribute at least 6% to get 3.5%. You can do less, but you won't get as much of the match. So my recommendation is to contribute at least 6% to get the full match, which is 3.5% compensation. That match does have a vesting schedule attached to it. So that's what I have listed here at the bottom of the screen. So vesting simply refers to the ownership of match money. Anything that you ever put into a 401k plan is always yours to take with you. Any employer money that goes into your account on your behalf is subject to a 2-year vesting schedule. So from the date you were hired until your 2nd anniversary, you're 0% vested until you hit that 2-year anniversary. So once you have been at the company for 2 years, you are 100% vested. And that clock does not start when you start participating in the plan. It starts upon your hire date. Okay, so if you've already been at the company for 2 years and you've never participated, you're already 100% vested if you just start participating now. So that's the 401k plan highlights. So this is what I said when I would break down how the match works. So you can see here on the screen how much you receive based on how much you're contributing. Okay. So as long as you're putting in that full 6% of pay, then you're getting that 3.5% match. So if you put in 1%, you get 1%. If you put in 2%, you get 1.5%. If you put in 3%, you get 2, 4%, you get 2.5, 5%, you get 3, 6%, you get 3.5. And then I even put 7% and 8%. So if you're putting in 7%, it maxes out, right? So that's why I recommended, and why I put that special shading there on 6%, is that you contribute at least 6%, so you get that full match. So basically, you're never going to receive more than 3.5% from Fairwave, but you have to contribute at least 6% to get it. If you're not able to do 6%, you can still get some of the match. So let's say you can only afford to do 4% right now. You're still going to get a 2.5% match. But I always say, do as much as at least 6% if possible, just so you're not leaving any match on the table, because that is a benefit that's provided to you. You do just have to contribute to the plan to receive it. All right, so a little bit about the automatic features within the plan. So many of you were probably automatically enrolled in the plan. This is a best practice. This is actually legally required for all new 401k plans that are set up, is that they have both automatic enrollment and automatic increase. So your plan already has it. So if you are a new hire coming in, you are subject to automatic enrollment, which means that you will, after 2 months of service, you'll start getting 3% deducted from your pay that will go into your 401k plan. And then each and every year that will increase by 1% until a cap of 6%. So you can always opt out of this if you don't want to participate. you will receive a notice informing you of automatic enrollment and you're able to go opt out. Same goes for automatic increase. If you don't want your contribution to be bumped up, you'll be notified ahead of time. You just have to take action on your end to make sure that you opt out. If you don't do anything at all, these automatic features will apply to you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how much we can put into the plan. As a reminder, you can start, stop, increase, or decrease your contribution amount really at any time. This isn't like an open enrollment type of situation with like health insurance, for example. You can make changes to your 401k really whenever you want. And you can do pre-tax or Roth. I will talk about the differences between those in a moment. But just know that you can kind of make changes at any time. You do that by going onto the One America website. You don't do it directly through Paylocity. You want to go onto One America and they will feed that information to your payroll provider, which is Paylocity. The IRS limit this year for how much you can put into a 401k plan is $23,000. So that is subject to change each and every year, but that's how much of your own money you can put into the plan. That doesn't apply to any of the money that Fairwave puts in. You yourself, whether it's pre-tax or Roth or a combination of both of those, you can do 23 grand into your 401k plan. If you are 50 or older, you can do an additional $7,500, which is called a catch-up contribution. Again, that can be pre-tax or Roth or a combination of both of them. You can also roll over other 401ks or IRAs into this plan. If you want assistance with that, let me know. Some people can do it on their own. Some people need a little bit of hand holding. I'm happy to help you. The only thing you can't roll into a 401k is a Roth IRA. So if it's a traditional IRA, you can roll it over. If it's a Roth IRA, you can't do it. But any other 401ks, Roth 401ks from previous employers, you can roll them into this plan. As long as it's what's called a qualified plan, it can be rolled over. Okay, so this is, I like to remind everyone before I talk about this to not take this as, or take it with a grain of salt, I suppose is the right way to say it. Generally speaking, these are kind of the checkpoints you want to be at by certain ages to make sure that you're on track for saving enough for retirement. So typically what experts tell us is that by the time we get to retirement, so around age 67 or so, we want to have between 10 to 12 times our annual salary saved. So the way that we get there is by backing into these various checkpoints here that you see on the screen. So by age 30, we generally would want you to see you have about 1 times your annual salary saved. Now, of course, our salary changes throughout our working career. So again, take this with a grain of salt, but these are kind of the guideposts that we recommend to make sure that you're on track. And people are really going to be all over the place when it comes to their savings rates. Just because, you know, some people take a break from working because they're raising kids, or people might, you know, own their own business where they weren't able to save. So sometimes we have to play catch up in certain seasons of life. But the ultimate goal is to hopefully have about 10 times their annual salary saved. Again, that can be different. This is a very general number, very general recommendation. But that's kind of, these are kind of the goals that we generally provide to the masses, if you will. Okay, so I mentioned pre-tax and Roth. So these are the 2 different ways to put our own money into the plan. If you're automatically enrolled, it's going to be on a pre-tax basis. So if you want to contribute on a Roth basis, you would have to manually go onto the One America website to select that option. So pre-tax simply means that you don't pay taxes today on your contributions, but you do pay taxes in the future on whatever you have saved in your plan. So no taxes today, taxes later. And Roth simply means that you pay your taxes today and you don't pay taxes later. So your money is actually able to grow tax-free and be withdrawn tax-free, as long as you meet those little criteria next to the asterisk at the bottom of the screen. So why would we want to do one versus the other? It's kind of a crapshoot, but it generally depends on your tax situation, right? So if you have super duper high taxes today, would you want to pay Roth? Probably not, because there's a possibility your taxes could be lower when you retire. However, if you're somebody that's on the lower end of the income earning portion of your career, you may want to consider Roth because you might be in a season of life where you're paying taxes at a lower rate and your taxes may be higher in the future when you wouldn't want to pay them. So that's kind of the gamble you take, is actually not knowing what taxes are going to look like in the future. But one thing I do know is that taxes tend to go in one direction. And which direction is that? It's up, right? So I like to generally say that I have conviction for people under the age of 50 doing Roth, simply because you have a long time until retirement. So you have a long time for your money to grow tax-free, which can be very, very impactful. So here's an example of that. So this is somebody saving $40 a week from age 25 to 65 and assuming a 7% annualized return. So what they actually contributed out of their own paycheck over the course of that 40-year career was $83,200. That's the gold portion of that bar chart, okay? Their account grew by $374,807 over the course of that career. So remember, everyone, when we're saving in a retirement plan, by the time we get to retirement, the majority of our account is earnings. So do you want to pay taxes on $83,200 or that total amount, $458,007? I'd want to pay the taxes on the $83,200 personally. So that's why we say that there's a lot of impact in doing Roth, especially if you're a younger person. And I do know there's a lot of younger people at Fairwave. So I would, if you're not doing Roth today, I would take a look and see about doing that, just depending on if you're under 50 or not. It can make a huge difference. A lot of retirees that I talked to today, they really wish that they had a tax-free bucket of money to pull from. Because by the time they get to retirement, based on their situation, they may owe a lot of taxes. And Social Security, depending on what state you live in, is also taxable. So having those tax-free buckets of money, like a Roth 401k or like an HSA, I don't know if you all have one, can be very helpful in retirement. Okay, so how do we get money out of the plan? So the most common reason for taking money out of a plan is because you leave your employer. So of course, if you separate from employment, you can take your account with you to your new employer. You can take a cash withdrawal, which I would not recommend. You typically are going to want to roll it into another 401k or an IRA or something of that nature so that you don't experience that taxable event. Because remember, if you're under the age of 59 and a half, you're going to get stuck with that 10% early withdrawal penalty if you take a cash distribution. So highly recommend not to do that. If you are 59 and a half and you're still working, you can take what's called an in-service withdrawal. Normal retirement age in your plan is age 65. If you die or become disabled, those are, of course, eligible withdrawal reasons. There is a financial hardship feature. So you do have to qualify for a hardship and provide documentation for those, but those are subject to the 10% early withdrawal penalty. And then I talked about separation of employment, and then there is a loan feature. So if you are in a situation where you need to borrow from yourself, your account in the plan, that is an option as well. If you leave Fairwave and your balance is less than $7,000, pay attention to the information that you receive in the mail, because if you don't do anything, your money will get transferred into an IRA in your name. So that can be kind of hard for people to track down at times. So just pay attention to what you receive in the mail. If you ever do leave employment at Fairwave and your account is less than $7,000, it is subject to what's called a mandatory distribution. So that won't happen for a while, but it will eventually happen if you don't do anything. So just try to keep track of your money. That's all I can ask. I feel like I'm working with people just all the time that have accounts floating around out there and they don't know where they are. Um, keep track of your money. This is money you worked hard for. Make sure you keep addresses updated as you move. Just keep track of your accounts. Okay, talking a little bit about investments, and I'm not going to bore you here, so I'm going to be a little bit brief. But the story here is that the market has always recovered when it's gone down. If we've had a bad market, it's always gone back up. Um, so try to remember that when you're an investor within a 401k plan. If you log on one day and your account balance is lower than it was 2 months ago, that's normal and that's to be expected. Our accounts are meant to fluctuate, especially while we're younger and we're invested in more volatile, stocks and equities. That's going to happen, and it's normal. And just remember that that's just what your account is valued at today. It doesn't mean you actually lost any money. I like to make fun of my dad because he likes to tell me how much money he lost, and I always say, Dad, you didn't lose anything unless you sell. So just know that it's a long-term investment strategy. And if your account isn't the amount that it was yesterday, it can and it probably will go back up eventually. And then this, of course, is just kind of a depressing slide about Social Security benefits and how Social Security simply just isn't going to cut it in terms of replacing our income in retirement. So try to remember that we shouldn't rely on Social Security. It's really going to only replace a small portion of our income in retirement. And for many of you who are younger, we don't really know what Social Security is going to look like in the future. It could be a lower benefit than what retirees are receiving now. And it's anticipated to be lower unless changes are made. So we shall see, won't we? And just a little bit more about investing and trying not to make decisions based on what's going on in the news. Um, if you are missing some of the best days in the market, it can truly impact your account in a way that is very significant. So without explaining too much, my recommendation is to stay invested during the good times and during the bad times. Don't try to go into a safe investment right before the election and then get back into a good investment right after the election. Just don't try to time the market because even the smartest people are not very good at it. The best thing in a 401k plan is just to stick to a long-term strategy. Okay, so speaking of the investment options available within your plan, this is what you have. The default option, so if you're somebody that was automatically enrolled, you were defaulted into what's called a target date fund. So I'll explain what those are. We also have risk-based portfolios if you'd like to choose one of those. And then if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want to build your own portfolio, you're able to do that too. So the default, it's called a target date fund. Why is it called a target date fund? Well, you can see here on the right-hand side all of these years that are listed within the funds that are listed on the screen. So 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035. Find your year that you were born here on the right-hand side of the screen, and you will see which corresponding target date fund you would want to have all your money put into. So using myself as an example, I was born in 1989. All of my money would go into the BlackRock LifePath 2055 target date fund. And that is simply because 2055 is approximately the year that I will turn 65 years old. So these are based upon a date in the future. And what happens with these funds is that they're invested aggressively while you're younger. And as you approach your target date, they become more conservative automatically. So for those of you that fall into the 2025, the 2030, the 2035, those are already on the more conservative end because you're closer to retirement. For those of you that are in the 2055, 2060, 2065, those are going to be more aggressive because you have a long time until retirement, and therefore you have time for your money to grow. You have time for your account to experience those ups and downs of the stock market. And then gradually, as you approach retirement, that allocation towards stocks and bonds will change and become more conservative. So this truly is a set it and forget it style of investing. It works for a lot of people because most people are not investment experts, and that's okay. These are very low cost investments that you have within your plan. So this is what most of you will be invested in. But if you don't want to use these, you don't have to. The next option we have is what's called risk-based portfolios. So these are managed by IntelliSense. We have 5 of them. They range from conservative to aggressive. So again, the main thing to remember with these is that they're static. So if you pick the aggressive portfolio, for example, it's going to stay aggressive. It's not automatically going to change. So let's say you're somebody that's 55 years old and you don't want to be in the target date fund that is, only 10 years away. So you don't want to be in the 2035 retirement target date fund. You want to be in the aggressive fund. Let's say for whatever reason you're comfortable being in an aggressive portfolio. Then you could pick one of these to choose from. This is a way to select your own risk instead of letting your date of birth select your risk for you, if that makes sense. And then for those of you that might be a do-it-yourselfer, we have all of these investments that are individual mutual funds that you can choose from. So a lot of index funds, if you want to index the market, you can do that. And we have, some other names you might recognize on the screen, T. Rowe Price, American Funds, Vanguard. So different funds that you can choose from. If you want to build your own portfolio, you certainly can. Okay, so wrapping up here, just to kind of recap what we've talked about, your goal ultimately is to save 10% or more. So remember, we talked about contributing at least 6% to get the match. If you're doing 6%, you're getting 3.5 from Fairwave. So that's 9.5%. You're super duper close to 10%. So I just recommend that you start somewhere and work your way up. So let's say you're doing 6% today. In 2025, consider doing 7%. In 2026, consider doing 8% and work your way up. That's kind of the ticket to success, I think, is to those gradual incremental increases. Because I know that, overnight we can't just say, hey, I want to contribute 10% tomorrow. It's easier to kind of work your way up to get there. Second decision, do you want to do Roth or pre-tax? Or you can do a combination of both, actually, if you want. We talked about the difference between those two, so that's a question to answer for yourself. Number 3, how do you want to invest? Easiest options are going to be that target date fund or a risk-based model. Most of you, again, are probably in the target date fund, but if you don't want to be, you don't have to be. Second to last, make sure you have a beneficiary on file. You can do that on the One America website. If you're married, it does, if you're legally married, it has to be your spouse as your primary beneficiary, but you can name others or children as your contingent beneficiaries or like a trust, for example. And then last but not least, we're here to help. So if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to assist you guys with any questions that come up. One quick note I do have is that we host 2 IntelliCasts every month, and they're over the lunch hour. So I know a lot of you probably aren't able to attend these live, but we do host the recordings on our website, which you can scan for the QR code there at the bottom, or you can just go to that link where it says intellisense.com/webinars. These have great information in them, guys, like especially like the Social Security one. If anyone on this call is close to retirement age, Social Security is an incredibly confusing topic, and that one's always really well attended. If you're younger, I would take a look at like wills, trust, and estate planning. I have 2 young children, and I just set up my trust for the first time. So that has a lot of good information on why it's important to have an estate plan in place, especially if you have young children. A little bit more on what's another good one that we've had recently. Tax planning is always well attended, the Medicare one. Navigating credit card debt is a really helpful one. But as you can see, lots of different topics that will apply to a lot of different people. So again, you can sign up for these, but if you can't attend them live, you can go back and listen to the recording. These are free for anyone to attend. And that is all I have. So I don't believe, hold on. Does anyone have any questions they want to put in the Q&A or anything? My screen went black, but I'm still here. I don't see any questions right now. I don't know if any of you were able to even talk on this recording, so I'm sorry. But like I mentioned, let me go put my contact info back on the screen just so everyone is able to grab it in case you want it. Okay. So there's our contact information. If you're interested in reaching out, please feel free to do so. I'm here to help. I try to make saving for retirement as uncomplicated as possible. So I appreciate your all's time today, and please reach out with any questions, and I will make sure this recording gets sent to your HR team so that whoever wasn't able to attend today can listen. But again, thank you all for your time and have a good one. Bye-bye.